Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are listening to from. This is another episode of The Last Word on Rugby. It's been a pretty adventurous week if you look at what has happened. The Boks got some good news from World Rugby. The Bulls are through to the quarterfinals of the EPCR's Challenge Cup. Pity about the Sharks and the Lions falling out of the race, but lots and lots to discuss. With me again this morning, we have Mike Greenaway and Ashfaq Mohammed. Guys, if you take a look at the good news the Boks received this week from World Rugby, reported by The Guardian over in England, no banning of the bomb squad. We will see the bomb squad going for hopefully years to come. Someday soon, maybe the 8-0 will be on the cards as well. But for now, 6-2-7-1 remains with no medical grounds found to ban that invention of Rassie Rasmus and Jacques Nienaber. The Boks surely will be very happy about that. Asham, I see you smiling.
Yeah, because when it comes to World Rugby, the Boks tend to get banned, for certain things. I mean, we can go in a deep dark past, but also in recent times, Rassie himself was banned for a couple of months there, and then if you look at the water boy issue of Rassie, and just generally over the years, we tend to get the wrong end of the stick when it comes to suspensions. Just now, lately with Leighton for sheer, the Stormers prop. I really hope that the Stormers are going to appeal that. I don't know if they can still appeal it because, that was a rough call to get 4 weeks there, and it was only after mitigation he was actually going to get 6 weeks. But because of good behavior and a good record, he got 4. I mean, the man was on his knees trying to make that tackle. Yes, it was shoulder, but no, I'm going on a tangent now because that is the kind of things that happens to South African rugby players and officials. And here we now get the thing of where the bomb squad or the nuke squad, as you termed it this week, Leighton, is all good and well. And I imagine it was a lot to do with the fact that France and Fabien Galtier also, also utilized it during the Six Nations. So, finally a victory for South Africa off the field, Mike.
Yeah, and you're right, because I saw when Rassie's tweet, he had the flag of France alongside the South African flag, and he said, I think the important thing is that innovation shouldn't be outlawed. And finally, World Rugby is giving us, a little bit of a break there, because you can't just keep changing laws all the time. And what they've said, the argument had been that it's unsafe. That was the main argument against the bomb squad, because you've got these big, fresh men coming on, and maybe the opposition don't have as many forwards. They can't bring on as many bomb squatters, if you like. And so you're putting them at risk. Tired forwards, and now you get fresh Springbok forwards coming on. And World Rugby's looked into that, and they said, no, there's no grounds for that. And I think the important thing there, just also going on a tangent, it was Gregor Townsend from Scotland who was the big voice against it. And why is that? Because they haven't got the forwards to match a bomb squad. It's the have-nots who did all the complaints, and the haves said it's fine. And World Rugby arbitrated on that. And it said they can't see any medical grounds to ban it. So it's basically well done to the Springboks for their innovation. And then there was the other major critic, that guy Matt Williams, who he was a New South Wales coach, and then he coached Scotland as well. And now he's like quite a big voice in Irish media. He's been the biggest advocate for banning the bomb squad. So I wonder if he's been admitted to hospital for cardiac arrest now after his campaigning came to naught. I don't wish that on him, but anyway.
The funny thing, guys, is that nothing stops the other teams from also picking 7 forwards, like France did. So what is the issue? Mike, yes, I hear about Scotland. They may not have the same kind of profile of forwards that South Africa do. I mean, to have a Erke Snyman come on with 20 minutes to go, it's a special situation. But nothing stops him from picking the extra loose forward or the extra lock on their bench, and so too for the other teams as well. So if they want to adopt that and see how it can work for them, then they should do that. It shouldn't actually even be a discussion about safety and bringing all these fresh forwards on now, and then the other team only has one. It's only one less forward if they go. I mean, many teams have now gone for 6-2 splits already. So it's just one more forward.
And Matt Williams has adopted country Ireland of furnishing bomb squads themselves. Rassie could well have added that Irish tricolour next to the French tricolour, because they also have had a few 7-1s in the Six Nations. So everyone's kind of doing it now. It's now part of rugby, and no laws have been broken, and no laws need to be changed. And World Rugby got it right.
Yeah, that's my whole point as well. If you find a loophole in certain laws, or you just see an opportunity, you innovate, you take a risk, and that's been the philosophy of Rassie, taking calculated risks to advance the Springboks, to get them one step ahead of their next closest opponent, who was New Zealand. And the first nuke squad 7-1 was used against New Zealand in a World Cup warm-up match. They got to Ireland, bomb squad them as well. Okay, obviously didn't pan out how they wanted it to, but in the World Cup they found out some things that they could take forward into the rest of the tournament when they did that, and it all panned out to a 2023 World Cup that made it a back-to-back win for the Boks. So I just feel if World Rugby said, no more bomb squad for you guys, no more bomb squad for you guys, Rassie would have said, fine, okay, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. And he would have brought something totally different into the game, something new, something innovative. And who knows, maybe Matt Williams would have gone on a rant again to get that out. But it's good to see that World Rugby stood up against those who are complaining and backed the bomb squad of the Boks, France, and hopefully we'll see some more bomb squads popping up, some franchises, as we might call it, pop up in the rest of the world.
And let's not forget, guys, that it's a massive risk to take. I mean, if you go 7 forwards and then you get 2 backs going down in the first quarter of a game, then you're almost stuck. And I mean, we've seen with the Boks, they've had to use Kwagga Smith in the back line, and I think even Peter Steph de Toy at one stage operated there. So that is the kind of chance sometimes you take. And yes, it worked out for the Boks in the end, and great. But if it didn't, it could very easily have blown up in their faces as well if they had to get those early backline injuries. So that's the kind of sort of risk you have to take sometimes, and it can work for you and sometimes not. So it's again just a juggling act and deciding for a particular game what would work best. And those are the options that you need as a rugby team. You mentioned the innovation. So if you're willing to go down that road and take that chance, and it works out, great. But if it doesn't, then you will question yourself again. So all teams have those options available.
Yeah. My final word on it really is, rugby is about entertainment. Sport is entertainment, and you don't want your game to stagnate. You want to continue to grow the game, to evolve it for different things to happen, to keep people excited and interested and wanting to watch the game. So within the laws of the game, you want innovation to be encouraged, not discouraged, because it's providing something new, something interesting. Talking points. I mean, how long have we been talking about this? So I'm really pleased that World Rugby have let it go ahead, the bomb squad, because we want innovation.
And just a last one from me also, Leighton, is that It could, of course, go the other way in terms of the makeup of the bench as well, because the only definite criteria is that you must have three front row forwards on the bench. So what stops teams from having five backs and three forwards then?
Exactly.
Nothing stops them. They can do that if they want to. And maybe someone, or maybe Rassie himself might even come up with that kind of ploy, it wouldn't be a surprise. So there's another option available for teams to explore. So let's see what happens.
It'll be interesting when the international season starts and how the Boks will look to innovate even further. They've got some good tests in the mid-year to explore and do a bit of trickery as they lead up into the Rugby Championship. But speaking about that entertainment factor and entertaining, are the South African teams entertaining, or are they providing that entertainment that we want in the European club rugby scene? I mean, we're going to celebrate the Bulls for making the Challenge Cup quarterfinals, but where are the other South African teams? The Stormers sat out for a weekend. They're going to sit out another weekend. The Sharks, the Lions just didn't produce against teams that they could have beaten. Not to take away the shine of the Bulls, but are we at that point where we say, guys, do we really need to? Do we really belong in the elite level of European club rugby, Mike?
Yeah, so it's a very good discussion. This because I feel that we are shortchanging the European competitions by not being able to field, with the exception of the Bulls who have been growing their squad, without being able to be full strength. I don't think it's right. But the problem at the moment, because I sympathise with the coaches, where at the moment they don't have the squad depth to be able to compete in both competitions. But then they need to do something to make sure they have proper squad depth. I mean, the Sharks, for instance, look, they sent the youngsters to Lyon. I mean, and I was down at Sharks training a few days ago. It was like watching the Springboks train. There was this full squad. I mean, Eben, Bongi, they are really preparing to go for a full onslaught in their next URC game, which is against Edinburgh. But the team that went to Lyon was just not up to scratch. So they have got to look at ways to grow their squad so they don't get themselves into this situation. It's been now, what, this is our fourth season in URC? And I think I mentioned last week how Leinster got it right. They make sure that their backup guys are competent enough to either win games in South Africa or come close. So I think we have to take these European competitions more seriously. I understand the Challenge Cup, as I mentioned last week, is the Consolation Cup. Once you've dropped into that, then you've got to put your eggs into the basket of the more important competition.
Yeah.
None of the Bulls have bucked the trend there, and good luck to them. But if the Champions Cup has to become, we have to change our focus. We've got to take that competition more seriously. And you just have to watch those Champions Cup games between the French sides and the English sides and the Irish sides to understand how absolutely massive it is. I mean, when one of those French teams wins the Champions Cup, the city, be it Toulouse or Toulon or La Rochelle, I mean, no one works for 3 or 4 days. I mean, they have ticket tape parades where there's like 100,000 people. And we like sending B teams to some of our games, and that's not right. Ash, I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Yeah, it is definitely a different juggling act because of the resources of the club, of course. I mean, Jake has been beating that drum since the start of our team's participation in the Champions Cup, that we can't match the salaries of particularly the French teams and, of course, the English as well. And that is something we can't ignore, I think, firstly, to be fair to Jake. Yes, the Bulls are not getting Andre Pollard back, but I think it's more a lifestyle decision for Andre, because he just had a child recently, and the family wants the kid to grow up in South Africa more than a rugby or financial decision. But generally speaking, I mean, Jake has also made the point that our teams don't sign foreigners generally across the board. Whereas particularly the French like to get those Fijian wingers and centers who are just devastating with ball in hand, and they can win rucks out wide and all of that. And that affects how you play and how you set up your squads as well. But in terms of the Bulls growing their depth, I think the penny dropped for Jake this season, where he's rotated his team way more often than in previous seasons.
Yeah,
I mean,
than
I
what he did
criticized him
last
before
season.
I mean, there were guys like Ruan Nokia playing over 1,600 minutes, playing every single game, 80 minutes every week. You know, Johan Grobler was also someone like that who just played every single game every week. And you can't have that if you want to be competitive in your Champions Cup. I think the Bulls were just unfortunate this season because they lost against Northampton at Loftus and against Saracens away. So that really knocked their Champions Cup ambitions. But, you know, I think going forward, they'll be better and more competitive. And definitely, Mike, I mean, all the South African teams must pick the strongest possible team in the Champions Cup. As we said before, it's the Champions League of rugby. The best of the best are in. And if it means sometimes, you know, playing a weakened team in a URC game, so be it, because the URC is our league now. It is like the normal league, like the English Premier League in soccer. So you've got to manage your squad so that and get your second string up to a level where they can win those kind of URC games.
Yeah.
But your best, your Springboks, your top guys must be in Champions Cup.
And maybe a solution is you made a very good point that we don't have the budgets of certainly the French clubs. So now we've got all the sponsorship coming into South Africa. We discussed that at length last week. There's a lot more money in the country. Maybe we can raise the salary cap. Maybe the money that filters down to the provinces can now be increased so that we can bring back more guys. And Jake would love this, more overseas-based guys. And that would, I mean, that's an affordability thing. I mean, I would say 99% of the South African guys playing in Europe would prefer to be playing in South Africa if they could earn similar money because of the lifestyle. So, yeah, if we could get more money into the provincial side of the game, then we could bring more players back and we'd have stronger depth and we could compete better in both competitions. But hopefully that money filters down. Whether it does or not, we watch that space. But that's a solution.
And the nice thing is, and I had a conversation with a pundit, unknown pundit on Twitter yesterday, and the thing what the Bulls are getting right at the moment is they have in certain key positions, like as you mentioned, the bench, 1, 2, 3. They've got 3 players at the ready to step in at 1, 2, 3. Your 5 lock, they've got some depth there. Eightman is another position. 10, they're gonna have 3 10s now with Andre coming back. And then it's just possibly in the centers a bit thin, but at the back they've got some pretty amazing flyers as well, from first choice till I think about third, and you need that kind of depth, I think, to be able to go to the Champions Cup and say, yes, go to Saints in the Champions Cup and tell them this is my strongest team with all my Boks. Let's see how you compare.
It's about trusting those sort of second string players as well. You know, Jake made a point after the Bayern game saying that, you know, the first choice back 3 for the Bulls would be Willie, Kanan, and Kirtley, and they are not there at the moment. You know, so you've got Devin Williams, Sergio Peterson, and Savino Jacobs. Now, in the past, they may have been regarded as guys who shouldn't really be playing Champions Cup or Challenge Cup level, but they're thriving now because they've been given that opportunity. Same with Keegan Johannes at Fly-Off. You know, Keegan Johannes was sort of regarded as a promising scrum half who's got good skills and can do a job at Fly-Off. Now, at the moment, technically speaking, yes, Johan Poulsen are coming back from injury, but Keegan Johannes is the first choice Bulls Fly-Off, and he was player of the match against Zebre 2 weeks ago at Loftus Versfeld, and had another good game last week in Bayern. So that's in terms of the growth of players. You've got to back these guys to actually do the job in those pressure situations in a hostile environment with a French crowd paying for
Yeah.
blood, and a referee maybe being influenced by all the hours of whatever from the stands. So that is the experiences that you have to go through to get to this level now. Where the Bulls, I mean, yes, Mike, the Sharks won the Challenge Cup last season already, so I don't think and that's why
Mm.
probably
They were
second
all
string.
not in it.
And they're
Yeah.
looking good in the URC, so they don't need the Challenge Cup to qualify
Mm.
for the Champions Cup next season. But the Bulls would like some silverware, and that is why
Yeah.
Jake sort of, he said last week it was a mix and match team against Bayonne. There were some first choices or some
Mm.
very good players, and others who were youngsters who still managed to do the job in France. So if you get to that level, then you can be competitive on both fronts.
And that was the good thing to see about the Bulls, the competitiveness. I mean, when they ran onto that field, that the noise was just overwhelming. But they kept their heads. I couldn't say the same for the Sharks and the Lions. The Bulls moving on to Edinburgh now. That's going to be interesting. Another stadium with a massive crowd in terms of the noise factor. They're gonna have to do it for a second weekend in a row. Just shut out the noise. After this, they can sort of take a breather, but not for long because then the URC gets going again. But just on that Edinburgh game.
So I think the tricky factor for the Bulls will be the 4G pitch. I mean, Goosen himself won't be a fan of it. That's where he got one of his big knee injuries
Yeah,
a couple of years ago,
bended his knees.
and Savino Jacobs also spoke this week about battling with a 4G pitch because it's quite heavy on the knees and ankles, and he's quite a big guy, even though he's a wing. And also, of course, the grass burns and just the contact of it. I think the Lions, one of their coaches mentioned also last week or the week before that I think it was Ivan van Rooyen, said they played their third game in a row on a 4G pitch. And
Yeah,
that takes its toll. So Edinburgh obviously used to it, and they're going to play their fast up tempo game and try and really speed it up and try and catch the Bulls defense out of
Mm.
position. But if the Bulls can again dominate up front, I mean Walker Lowe was just again a monster in the scrums. I mean the look that the Bayern Lucy had on his face at one stage in the second
Mm.
half, I could feel it because he was just really being drilled by Walker. So the
yeah.
Bulls need to be accurate. They win their set pieces. Their liners have been going well. Ruan Nokia is back now, so I would hope that you probably start this weekend. Although Jay van Heerden, the junior Bok, has been doing well at number 5. Um, so if they can get that front football, they've got the backs to do the job. But Edinburgh, I think Edinburgh's defense will be much tighter than Bayonne. They'll be more organized, and that 4G pitch is a factor. The wind could be a factor in Scotland always. I mean, this Hive Stadium, it might be small. I think it's like a 10,000 seater, but it's just behind the Murrayfield Stadium. It's quite exposed there. So the
Hmm.
conditions would also be a factor on the day.
Jake and Sean, interesting relationship there. Both were at the Bulls, both former Sharks coaches. So
Mm.
you would have some inside information about the two of
Yeah.
them and how they would go about this game, trying to outfox one another.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting. When Jake coached the Sharks, Sean was one of his assistants, and um, Jake didn't. I've got to word this carefully. Jake wasn't that confident in his assistant coach's abilities at that
Hmm,
time. So we were talking
hmm,
about now 2014, I think it was. Um, and Jake inherited the assistant coaches he had at
yeah,
the Sharks then, and he did intimate that he wasn't entirely confident in the coaching team that he had. And of course, Sean was one of his assistants then. Um, and I think that was just because he didn't really know them.
yeah.
Uh, but that has changed. Of course, Sean obviously more than proved himself because there was a little bit of a kind of a fallout between Jake and Sean. And then 10 years later, Jake is asking him to come and coach at the Bulls. So I think it's actually a very nice sort of full circle that's happened there. And I mean, Sean's strength is in backline play. He was a very good centre himself. In fact, played rugby against Sean very many years ago. He was a fantastic centre. So he's very good at innovation in the backline, and I think he has helped influence the Bulls backline from his time there. And then you see how Edinburgh play. They're typically Scottish. They love that quick tempo ball. They love to use the width of the field. Marcel Coetzee called it the mini moves that they have in the backline. You know, they have these little things they do, and then they have the pacey loose forwards to be able to support them. So Jake will know exactly what's coming from Sean. But as Ashfaq has said, I think the Bulls get on top, and they will. And I think there's a bit of a soft underbelly in the tight phases there, especially the set scrums for Edinburgh. And they get that stranglehold there. Then it negates those Edinburgh backs to a huge degree, and it opens up opportunity for the Bulls backs, and they're no slouches themselves. So my feeling is Bulls will get on top up front, and their backs will finish the job. I think the Bulls will win this one.
My thoughts are, yeah, the Bulls will take this one. They look like the confident team at the moment. It's a squad effort for them, and they are playing as a squad. So my money's on the Bulls to get through to that semi, and then they'll definitely take it from there. Looking at those couple of URC overseas games that they still have to face as well.
I hear you guys' confidence, but I think it's a tough ask. No, I'm being genuine because they now won their first game on tour, but Jake is definitely maybe not worried is not the right word, but he's definitely got Munster and Glasgow on his mind in the URC, which is the next two games after this, in Limerick and then in Glasgow. So URC is still, I would say, the priority for the Bulls, and he knows if he can win those two games, then he can really the Bulls can push for second spot on the URC log behind Leinster and get a home quarter and a home semi-final in the URC. So it will be interesting to see what kind of team he picks tomorrow for this Edinburgh game, because does he now bring in all his first choice guys straight into the starting lineup because it's a quarter-final and it's a knockout game, or does he still keep some of them back for the next 2 weeks, which is Munster and Glasgow? What worries me about Edinburgh is that, those loose forwards you mentioned, Mike, they're really ruthless at the breakdown. I mean, Hamish Watson and Jamie Ritchie, they're superb operators, and they just, Edinburgh as a whole, their whole pack, they're just so in tune with contesting the breakdowns, making your ball scrappy or getting those turnovers, and it just disrupts your whole flow as a team. So that's a big danger for the Bulls. If they can sort of shut that out, keep their shape in defense, because as Edinburgh gets a quick ball, they've got good pace out wide and can score some lovely tries. If the Bulls can just weather that kind of storm, then they will have a chance. But yeah, I'm worried. I'm not that confident of a Bulls game. It's going to be really tight. I never sit on the fence. I said that a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, I am again.
Yeah, it's been another episode of The Last Word on Rugby. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to click that like button, subscribe to the channel as we bring you weekly the news pertaining to the rugby of South Africa, whether it's the URC, the Challenge Cup, the Champions Cup. You'll get it here on The Last Word on Rugby. Gents, thanks for joining me. It's been another lovely chat. We'll be back next week. Cheers.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.